Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the first inaugural episode of the Yellow Pages Bookcast. We're your hosts. This is Steven.
And this is Jason. This is the podcast where we're going to choose a book by an Asian or Asian American author, usually in the fiction genre, and we'll just read it and share our thoughts. So we'll be doing short reviews, character breakdowns, and doing some more fun discussion, like if we were going to make this into a show or movie, who would we pick for the cast? So let's get into it.
All right, so the first book we will be reviewing is Jade City, and Jade City was written by Fonda Lee. So, Jason, I don't know if you read this in the interview section, but she actually mentioned that her main idea was to create like a wuxia, like a martial arts gangster kind of book in that genre. And I don't know, I think she did pretty well.
That's true. She said that, and I also remember her saying she was looking for a book like this, but she couldn't really find one.
Right.
You have your traditional wuxia, but they're only usually set in like
Ancient times.
ancient times,
Yeah.
but not really something in the more contemporary era. So she basically just set out to write a book that she was looking for. So it's what they say, write what you want to read.
Right. And then, so when we were first deciding on this, starting this podcast, you kind of mentioned that you wanted to read this book. So I was kind of wondering, like, why did you choose it in the first place? Why start with this book in particular?
Yeah, so first of all, I follow a few fantasy book reviewers on YouTube just to like keep myself in the loop. And this book was circulating for a little bit, and it was getting really good reviews. It never really piqued my like actual interest until more recently, when I was basically thinking like, I've been reading pretty much similar things. Like, if you're a fantasy sci-fi fan, then you have your established genre. Everything starts to sort of bleed into like similarity. So I was like, okay, is there something different? So not only is Jade City kind of like a modern urban mafia setting, it has like an interesting magic system, and it's set in an Asian inspired setting, which is, historically it's been pretty rare in the American sci-fi fantasy world.
Right.
So that's kind of why I was like, okay, this is probably a good place to sort of whet my appetite for something different.
Yeah, and I thought it was really interesting because normally you're not the mafia kind of guy. I'm the guy who loves mafia. I love the mafia movies like Godfather, Goodfellas, all those mafioso. Whereas you're kind of always from high school. I remember you were more of the fantasy lover. You always liked these fantasy type of books in a historic period and things like that. So do you feel like this was kind of a step out for you, or like a jumping into a different genre?
Yeah, to be honest, I've never really read a lot of works by Asian or Asian American authors, which is kind of a shame on my part. But that's, I'm trying to get better about that. So
Yeah.
yeah, it definitely was a step out. I've always liked reading about things that don't really that there's nothing like that in the real world. Like something. I tended more towards the wow, that's so crazy, or that's so different. So
Right.
yeah, definitely something new for both of
So,
us.
well, yeah, I think so. Let's get into a quick non-spoiler overview, and then we can further discuss this, because mainly this is a kind of in a sense, generic style of mafioso, where it's two families pitted against each other. But what I really enjoyed about it, that separates it from the generic is, you kind of mentioned it. So we're going to get into it a little bit. So basically, this book. The main setting is in this fantasy area called Kakan, right? It's kind of like an island. Am I right so far?
Yeah, that's correct.
So it's the island of Kakan, and to me, when I read it, it kind of felt like a little bit of Taiwan and a little bit of Hong Kong, and we'll kind of get into that a little bit because they even have this place called Janlong, and basically there's two warring factions on this island, but we really only get an idea. We only get primarily an overview of one family, and that's called the No Peak family. And the No Peak family, they have a couple of. So it's based on family, it's based on blood, and it's based on the ability to hold Jade in a sense. Jade is kind of like a battery, a magical power source, but also just a war a war tool too. And basically the two warring factions are trying to control the island of Kakan's Jade pretty much. So everything other than that, we're not going to get into too many spoilers until later, but everything around that is based on the family members of the No Peak clan, and pretty much their struggle and their ability to control this source of Jade. Is there anything you want to add to that?
No, yeah, that's a really high level summary of it. I will add to that. We basically follow probably three main characters and viewpoints in this book.
Right.
And they're all, yeah, as Steven mentioned, they're all members of, I believe, the No Peak clan, and they are actually one family who controls that clan. So I mean, I don't want to really get more into it without, you know, getting into spoiler territory. But let's see. Yeah, I guess. What do you think of the book?
Overall, I really enjoyed it. Now, I'll say a couple things about the narrative. I kind of mentioned this to you earlier. So, a lot of the books that I normally read, there's this particular writer, his name is Don Winslow, and his narrative is very truncated. He gets straight to the point with the dialogue and the character descriptions and basically setting descriptions and everything like that cuz he works in the real world. Whereas in this book, the author Fonda Lee, she has to explain to you how this world works, and I think she does it wonderfully. But at the same time, it's a lot of words, and I feel like that's a big thing about fantasy genre because it's a brand new world. It's not something you experience. So at the end of the day, the book in narrative is about 495 pages. I I don't know if you could cut that down by just cutting out some narrative, but if this were a movie, right? We're talking about we're talking about two movies at 2 hours each episode or each volume, right? So in essence, I don't know. If I could have done it cuz I'm also a movie fan. If I could have done it, I probably would have cut it down by like as much dialogue as possible, or not even dialogue, but descriptors. But other than that, I really enjoyed the flow of the book. I listened to some of the online reviews as well, and although I don't quite agree with them because they don't seem to understand the culture, the Asian American culture, and how family is super impactful and super important in a sense. But I really enjoyed every single character. I would say the standout to me is I really liked Lan up until a point, and I really liked Hilo. And maybe that's just the guy, the testosterone inside of me,
Yeah,
because
it's like two sides of being a man in that position, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then so Jason mentioned this before. We're gonna kind of get into the casting, some some fantasy casting, but I think I got some pretty good ideas for at least Hilo. I think I've got Hilo on the lock. But yeah, I
It's
think
funny. It's
Lan was a
funny.
little more difficult because, like Jason mentioned, Lan is more of the wise guy, or filled with peace and wisdom. He doesn't want to go into war. Hilo's more of the abrasive, boisterous. He wants to fight kind of guy. And then I really enjoyed Shay and how she comes into her own skin. At first she doesn't want anything to do with the family. She's kind of like Michael Corleone, but due to unsuspected circumstances that we'll get into a little later, she gets into her own skin and she grows into her role. And then I thought the bad guys were so mysterious and really cool. The Mountain Clan. And then finally, the overarching thing is I really thought that it was cool how they did all the politics as well. So for me, this book, if we did out of 5, I think I would give it about a 4. It was pretty well described, and I felt like all the characters were really really well developed. What about you?
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely a slow burn. So,
Yeah.
especially when you have a fictional setting like this, along with like a whole fictional magic system along with it, along with a sprawling world that kind of
Hmm.
mirrors our own but isn't quite exactly the same. It does take a lot of words to help set that up. So, I would say the
Right.
first half of the book is definitely a slow burn. You can see the tinder definitely smoking, and it makes you kind of excited about what's it gonna turn into in the future. But there is still a lot of there's a lot of rules that you have to get familiar with in order for things to be logical and make sense.
Right.
And if you're not paying attention, then there's a lot of little things that you'll miss here and there. Literal yet Oh, on top of the setting and the magic, you have to know the culture. For example, the culture of the what they call the jade wearers.
Right.
They follow something called Aisho, which is like a whole set of rules, kind of like honor, like Bushido.
Right.
One example of that is like one who wears jade will not attack another who does not wear jade unless they are attacked first. Like that's just one rule out of many. So, it's a lot of stuff to get familiar with and download so you know what's going on, but once you're done with that, like you are fully immersed.
And not just that, when it comes to the Jade, there's also a caste system, right? Like there
You mean within the organization, the clan?
are okay, there's that. There's kind of the positions within the clan, but there's also the people that can hold Jade and the people that can't, right?
Yeah, wasn't that kind of a racial thing?
Yeah, I think so. And but it's also it kind of reminded me of India in a sense, where there's people with power, and then there's the people, the homeless folks and everything like that, where it's like, may I kind of thought of it as a caste system where it's where they have like they have the stone eyed, and then the mixed bloods, and then the people that can hold jade. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's true. So that's like a yet another facet of what you need to learn about the culture.
Yeah, and I kind of want to bring this into it a little bit. I don't think it's a spoiler, but they have this thing called the KJA, the Kakan Jade Alliance. And then all of a sudden, I kind of was reminded of Star Wars Phantom Menace, how they're always talking about taxation and stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, here, it's a little bit more fleshed out than Phantom Menace.
Yeah, and I thought it was really awesome how she was able to build the world out. I think she's definitely a really good writer.
Yeah, it does take a lot of research to build something that's, is different from what we know, but yet is reminiscent of it. So a
Right.
lot, you can tell a lot of research went into this. So as I was saying, the first half of this is a slow burn. It definitely picks up the latter half.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think the way it ended was good, but let's just say I am more eager to read the next book than anything else. So that's a good thing to say about this book.
Right.
The only complaints I had were, so the character work was great. Like none of these characters seemed too fake. Like they all were flawed in their own way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, None of them felt like the like a wish fulfillment character, like a perfect character. Like there was none of that here. They were all sympathetic, flawed in their own way, and you get to understand them and how they think.
Right.
The only complaints that I had were, it is a lot of information taken, but the way it's woven through plot points is pretty good.
Yeah.
I would say, I know there were a lot of parts dedicated to teaching the reader about the greater world beyond Janloon
Mm-hmm.
and Kekon, however you pronounce it.
Yeah.
But I felt like, what if they kept it more focused just within the city itself,
Right.
which they kind of did. But I felt like they hinted at the outside world, like Espenia and Shotar, which are like analogies of Japan and I'm guessing America or Europe.
Yeah, I was thinking Spain. It was the way it was
Yeah,
written.
it
It's so
does. It
close.
does sound like Spain, but yeah, I wonder if they had kept it a little bit more focused locally, then they
Hmm.
could have, achieved what you were saying, like cut down some pages.
Right.
But that goes to my point of I'm more excited to see what she does with those settings and how it plays into the affairs of this clan war in the later books.
Yeah, and it definitely ends in you're amped up for the next episode. So I definitely am, yeah, very excited for the next one. But yeah, like how would you rank it then? Like, or out
Yeah,
of
4 out of
5?
5 also.
4 out of 5?
Yep.
And okay, so you're more of the reader out of us. I only recently started reading a lot more novels. I primarily read graphic novels because I have to have pictures. I'm more of a I'm a visual learner as well. But so out of a lot of the other fantasy fiction, how does this compare? Is it well written in that sense as well, or how did you feel?
Yeah, it is. One of the biggest challenges with science fiction fantasy is, how do you teach the reader about your particular set of rules and the systems so that your story makes sense, right?
Mm,
And that we basically call that world building, and that is a huge task.
right.
So one of the easy pitfalls is to just focus on world building and neglect the characters or neglect the plot or just sacrifice like a huge info dump in the beginning with a whole ton of exposition, which ruins the pacing, right? So
Right.
here with Jade City, I felt like there was a nice blend that was airing on the side of a slow burn.
Right.
So basically, if it were any slower, I would have had a lot more complaints. But I think it was kind of edging on that line a little bit for me, but it was
Yeah.
still overall pretty good. So it did avoid a lot of those pitfalls. Characters, I think this is where Jade City excels,
Mm,
um, especially with Lan. Because like everyone's supposed to look up to him, but immediately, like every scene he's in, you can feel his vulnerability. You can feel that he's just someone who's thrust into a situation that he knows he's out of his depth,
Yeah,
but he's still
agree.
trying his best. So like there's a great sense of vulnerability yet resolve, where every time we see his viewpoint.
Yeah.
Should we get into spoilers so we can discuss a little bit more in depth on why we gave it 4 out of 5?
Yeah, sure. But before we get there, there is one thing that I wanted to add. I think one of the really good things about this book is sometimes you can read the chapter heading and then it says something as simple as the Temple of Divine Return or something like that. And if you've read this book clearly, you'll remember. And I think this is so important because it kind of reminds you how well the book is written. But you'll if you read these chapter headings, you'll automatically kind of remember what that chapter was about. Although, to be honest, I don't remember. I don't remember what that particular chapter is about. But there's a lot. There are a lot of chapters that are like that. Like the other one, Who Returned, and we can get into a lot more of the plot when we get to the spoiler point. But yeah,
Yeah,
go ahead.
yeah.
What were you gonna say?
Okay, so we're going to go into spoiler territory. So if you haven't read the book and you're interested, just go out and pick it up and come back and listen to the rest.
All right,
Okay,
let's do it.
all right. So when I remember you said you liked Land up until a point,
Oh,
and
right.
I can probably guess what that point was.
Yeah.
Is it
Actually,
where?
huh?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, yeah, so spoiler alert already. Lan, what happens is he gets coerced into like this fight pretty much with the mountain. I don't really remember all the things leading up to that, but so he's fighting one of the higher ups in the mountain and he beats him, but all of a sudden, so every time you fight someone with jade, you have to take their jade. And what that causes sometimes is like this power overload, as well as sort of absorbing their aura, their jade aura. So he pretty much is overly bombarded by jade, where he uh, up till the end of his life, there's this excess jade that he's not able to process properly, and so he has to utilize this drug pretty much called shine. Shine is a drug that they use to allow non-jade holders to be able to hold jade, which they're trying to which they're trying to incorporate in the worlds, like the outside countries. They're trying to incorporate into their military system because as we get into it, like Jason will attest, but Jade allows the wearers to like perform like kamehamehas or like force blasts and stuff like that. So basically, I guess what I didn't like was Lan started to become more of a drug user because Shine is highly addictive, and that is one of the main reasons. That's what leads him to his downfall, pretty much, right?
Yeah, yeah. So that is, yeah. So I agree with you. But what's interesting is that if you're in his position, like what were the alternatives, right? Like you had
Yeah,
basically, you know, he was a face of the clan, and when you're in a standoffish situation, you have to appear strong.
right.
And so like not taking the opponent that he rightfully killed, his Jade, would would have been unthinkable.
Yeah, it looks bad because it's like it's the spoils of the war, right? It would be like when Achilles killed Hector and rode around with Hector's body, right? And then everyone just takes their armor at the end of the fight, or when Patroclus like dies, right? They you have to like you have to, what is that, negotiate for those things to be returned, or you just look bad. So I think it kind of goes into that realm of, you know, taking the spoils of the war, right?
Yeah,
That makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah,
So yeah, I liked Lan up until that point, and I still respected him. But man, I was just like devastated when he died, because you know it wasn't because this little kid shot at him or whatever. He basically died of a drug overdose.
yeah, yeah. And
And
it
to
kind
me,
of sucks because you
yeah.
kind of want, because he was probably the main character, I'd say, for the first, was it half of the book?
Oh, 100%.
So yeah, so you would want him to sort of have a more heroic death, but no, he just died like a junkie by the docks, basically.
Yeah.
So it was pretty heartbreaking. Um, but I think it kind of had to be done.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure his death had to be handled like that, but he basically had to get out of the way because he was basically the one little keystone to holding everything together.
Right.
After that, everything just basically goes downhill in terms of the relationship between the two clans. Because so some background, what was also interesting was the grandpa character.
Oh,
What
right.
was his name? Sen,
Yeah.
called Sen.
Call
Yeah.
Fen.
So some background, the two clans used to be one. It just used to be called the, wasn't it the Mountain Clan? And then
Um,
the No Peak Clan splintered off from that.
well, One Mountain Society, I think.
Yeah, they used to be one,
Yeah.
because before this, I think not several, a few decades before the start of this book, there was a war of independence
Right. It was called
from,
the Many Nations War.
yeah, I think the nation of Shotar, which is the analog of Japan,
Mm.
had Kekon as a colony, kind of like Taiwan, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So the clan was basically the organization that freed the island from foreign rule. So um, they were the one mountain society, and then something happened where it splintered off into two clans, and that's where we are today.
Right.
So what's interesting to me was how the elder of the clan, of the Nopi clan, used to be this, awesome fighter and hugely influential figure.
Right.
And now he's just relegated to a wheelchair, and basically he's bitter
Yeah.
because he sees, like, he's old, but he's not crazy completely. He
He
sees
yeah.
how the younger generation basically can't handle the duties of what it takes to keep the city together, because he knows like the foreign influences are not going away, and infighting is going to lead to the downfall of it all, which
And
leads us to the motivations of the antagonist, the Mountain Clan,
right.
and her name is Ait Mada.
Yeah.
So I actually found myself sympathizing with what she was saying.
Yeah, she's super smart. Like, just reading her, she should have killed everyone. Like, she's cunning, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but like, I found myself agreeing with her because she knows if like, she doesn't want this. That's kind of why a lot of the inciting incidents happen in the book, because she wants to eliminate the people that she knows are going to stand in the way of the greater overall picture,
Right.
which is bringing us to our next main character, Hilo.
I
And you
love
pronounce it Hilo, but I'm not sure how what the correct pronunciation is.
right. Hilo. So I I was thinking yin and yang, right? Like high low. But yeah, you might be right.
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah.
So yeah, Hilo is more of the impulsive hothead who
Yeah.
answers, basically thinks violence is usually the answer. Not always, because there is some nuance to him, but more often than his siblings.
I think as he progresses after Lan's death, he starts to conjure up more of a sympathetic side. Like you never read that at the beginning half of the book. He seems very he seems like the normal gangster pretty much, like the
Yeah,
muscle of the clan.
yeah. Like he's cool. People look up to him.
Yeah,
Like I think on screen he would probably be like the cool dude who's like a good fighter. Everyone respects him.
exactly.
And this is also another thing that I liked where, you know, if push comes to shove, all of the fighters will follow Hilo instead of Lan, right? If something happened between them.
Exactly. And not just that, he knows his deficiencies when he becomes the pillar. Oh, Jason, we should talk about that, right?
Mhm.
Their clan
Yeah,
positioning. Cuz dude, I'm on the Wikipedia right now, and so it has this mention of the Godfather, right? So the
yeah,
Godfather has the Don, the underboss, and Consigliere, right? The Consigliere is kind of he's the counselor of the group. And
hmm
in this book, they have a similar totem pole. It's like the pillar, the horn, and the weatherman, right?
right. So the pillar is the Dawn, right?
Right.
The weatherman is the consigliere, like the advisor slash smart person, and
Right.
the underboss is the horn, right?
And then I just thought of this because if you think about it, when it comes to the weatherman, I don't know if you remember in ancient Asian cultures and in most cultures, right? A lot of people look to the weather to strategize, right? So if you think about a movie like, have you seen Red Cliff?
Which one? The John
Uh,
Woo one?
yeah, the John Woo one.
Yeah, a long time ago. I don't really remember much.
So there's this guy named Zhuge Liang, right? And he's
Oh
kind of
yeah.
the advisor, and he's always looking at the weather to figure out, okay, we got to strategize to follow the wind into this battle so that we have the wind against our sails or the wind with our sails so we can, you know. So I think that's really interesting how she's able to take the weatherman and kind of make that into that role because in a sense that is kind of the ancient culture. They would have looked
Yeah.
to certain things
Yeah,
and
that's interesting.
signs.
What about the horn though? Like where do you know where that comes from?
I think the horn is more like, okay, let's say if you're going into battle, right? You're gonna blow a horn, right? Do 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 do, and then you're gonna charge at that point. The horn is kind of like the sign of battle, or
Yeah.
the army.
Yeah. I was
Oh,
that was my first thought. I was also like, well, he could be the horn of like a rhino
oh
leading the charge. I don't know.
yeah.
I'm
No,
like, I
that
don't know
that
what kind of horn they're referring to.
I think that's a good point because either way, if you have the horn as this, the beacon of the fight or the horn of the rhino, they still have that edge tip. Either way, you're either blowing in it or you're running into it. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's kind of the same concept. And the pillar, I thought that was interesting because the pillar can go back into ideas of ancient Greek pillars, right? They
hmm
stand up for something. And at the same time, you could think of it like a totem pole, right? Because either way, it's going to be a column that stands upright, which means, that's what you follow. That's kind of the things that I was thinking of just now. I didn't even think about this before we started talking about it.
Well, that's good. That's why
Yeah.
talking about it's good.
So
And
yeah,
underneath these three, there's actually more, right? You have
yeah,
the lantern men, which are basically the businessmen that are loyal to you, and
right.
they give you money in exchange for quote unquote protection, kind of like in
Yeah,
the old days.
yeah.
But here, it seems like this relationship is more of
Economical.
like it's economic, but it's also kind of like it goes back on like history, like, oh, we've been loyal to this clan for like 50 years. So it seems like it kind of runs a little bit deeper than just, oh, you're in our territory, give us money. So I'm
Yeah,
thinking it probably started out like that, but then, you know,
The families got intertwined.
Yeah, the families got intertwined. They actually help each other out, and so it
Right.
seems like a more symbiotic relationship instead of like a one-sided relationship.
Agreed.
It- yeah. Then
And
you had
remember,
the
huh?
then you had the pillar men, which are
Oh,
kind of like the officers of the organization.
okay.
Then you had the fists, right? The fists are the soldiers.
Right. And then you have each individual like fingers.
Yeah, the fingers are like the goons underneath each fist.
Yeah. Wait, okay, really quick. You know Mike Ken and Mike Tar?
Yeah,
So Mike Ken and Mike Tar are the fighters that are just below Hilo or Hilo. And they're kind of like they kind of lead the are they the head of the fists? Is it
yeah. I think when Hilo became pillar, he promoted one of the Mike brothers to horn and the other one to like first fist, which is I
Oh,
guess
okay.
the still under the horn, but like the horn's right hand man.
Oh, Pillarman. So Tar became Pillarman to call Hilo, yeah. So I guess yeah, and I think that's really awesome how she like fleshed out all these positions. So yeah, I don't know. That was the Lantern Men, and then what else?
There's others also. I don't
Yeah,
remember off the top of my head, but there are. I think the so that's on the horn side. The horn has um the fists and the fingers. The weatherman has officers of her own as well.
right. And remember, she promoted land, or she moved Land's previous.
Well, are you reading the second book already?
Well, no. The good thing about the second book is they give a breakdown of all the characters.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm trying to. Oh, so Woon. You remember Woon?
Yeah.
So
Yep.
he's currently the Weatherman's shadow. He was the former Pillar Man to Lan, but he didn't succeed at that position. But yeah, it's just like there's advisors to advisors, and then there's fighters to fighters, and then each side has these particular roles.
Yep.
And and yeah, I was gonna go back to the Lantern Men because remember there's this restaurant at the beginning, middle, end, right? It's called the
Yeah.
Twice Lucky.
Yeah.
And I thought it was so interesting because the owner of Twice Lucky, he also there's moments in the book where they mention that a lot of these lantern men, like their children, will go to the academy. And then so they have this warrior academy. Do you remember what that one was called?
Uh, no, but I know each of the clans has their own academy that they send their families to.
Right. So anyone can be sent to this academy to learn how to hold jade or to be a warrior or whatever. Pretty much, that's why a lot of these families get entwined with each other because they learn to respect each other through protection, and then they're like, oh, I'll just send my kid to the school, right?
Yeah.
And then so yeah, I thought it was interesting because the Twice Lucky has a particular dish where it's like some kind of fried squid or something. Is fried squid
Yep.
balls?
Yeah.
Is that kind of like takoyaki or
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, takoyaki on the
Well,
stick, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. It was either that or for some reason I was thinking of Filipino food, but I don't know. Hey, do you want to talk a little bit about Jade? Like
Okay. Yeah.
the magic behind Jade. I think that's really interesting too.
Yeah. So in the sci-fi fantasy world, there's a lot of what we call magic systems. It's basically an explanation of how characters can do things that are out of the ordinary. So here, the magic system is called basically wearing jade, where only certain kinds of people can wear jade and harness their effects. So when someone, I think they have to be from Kikon
Mm-hmm.
or a native Kikonese. So if a native Kikonese wears jade, then they can start harnessing different aspects of it, like deflection, projection. Kind of think of like the force, right? Like, yeah, force projection, force shield. So
Yeah.
it's kind of similar to that.
Yeah.
I kind of like it because there's a cost to it. Like, if you wear too much, then bad things will happen. For example, in Land's case, there's also culture around it. Like, you have to take, you can take rightfully take the jade of someone you killed,
Right.
who's also a jade bearer. Um, and I also like how it's kind of melds into just raw physical combat.
Yeah.
Like, you just don't have people like standing there shooting jade at each other. You actually, it's woven into like actual and pretty brutal physical combat.
Yeah. It's like
So
martial arts. Yeah.
yeah, so I wouldn't say it's like a magic system. It's more of like a martial arts enhancement thing.
Yeah. It's like enhancing your chi in a sense, right?
Yeah.
So I kind of meant, I was joking a little bit, but I kind of mentioned like Kamehameha and stuff like that. But they kind of use it as, for example, strength. They have something called strength where it'll make your punch like much more powerful. Or you can like create a force field around yourself that'll deflect certain things, right?
Hmm.
And then so actually this leads to near the end when so there's this character named Andon, right?
Yeah.
Andon's kind of like the adopted cousin into the family, and I don't think he's pure Kikanese, because his mother went crazy from jade overuse. So every he's been going to school and learning how to use jade and stuff, and for the first time he gets to use jade in fights. While this big fight with Hilo and the I think it's the horn gaunt ash
Yeah.
of the
Gaunt. Yep.
mountain.
Hmm.
So as this is going on, like Hilo is pretty much losing because he just fought a bunch of fingers and a bunch of fists. Like he's going crazy on these guys. He's throwing deflections and strength everywhere, and pretty much he's on. His battery is low, and then he throws Andon like a chain of jade or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And then Andon grabs this jade and he goes in and he's the one that kills Gaunt Ash, right? He stabs him. I Does he stab him?
Yeah. Yeah. Something like that. I don't remember, but it's basically, it was like a risky gambit, and Anna just flies in and just kills him, basically, delivers a death blow.
Yeah, and what's interesting is after all that, they kind of go. They're kind of like recuperating, and Andon realizes he kind of has no control over the jade because I think it's because he's mixed blood. He loves the power too much.
Yeah,
So
or it's just
yeah,
that he's too powerful, because all
yep,
throughout the book, this character Andon, he's built up as like this really talented prodigy. Like, I think Hilo said he's going to be the best student, he's going to be his best soldier. So, all throughout the book he's being built up as like someone who has super high potential and could potentially turn the tide of the war between the two clans.
right,
And I think it's interesting that, in the end, he is super powerful because he kills, the super powerful horn of the mountain clan.
hmm,
But then, he realizes, like, oh man, like, this is too much power. I'm going to end up like my mom if I continue on. So I
yeah,
thought that was an interesting twist, because it kind of doesn't go the way you expect. I
yeah,
was expecting him to basically be unleashed
yeah,
on the mountain clan, just like win the day,
yeah,
which it kind of happens, but not in the way you expect.
right,
So
right,
I'm interested to see what becomes of him, because as of the end of the book, he's kind of been exiled
right.
from the clan, because Hilo's like, if you're not going to fight for me, what good are you to me?
Yeah, exactly. And he's not even blood related. He's like adopted into the family, but everyone sort of loves him as a brother, as a baby cousin kind of thing. So I don't know. I just really liked all the dynamics. You want to talk a little? I feel like we talked about Lamb. We talked about Hilo. You want to talk a little bit about Shay?
Yeah, yeah, let's do that. So Shay is an interesting one because I think out of all the characters, I kind of predicted her arc.
Yeah.
And it's no mystery, but I kind of knew that she was going to end up as the weatherman and kind of going to end up as, you know, being sucked in even though she's trying her best not to.
Right. I
So,
yeah.
yeah, it's
Oh,
kind of interesting because, she's initially presented as an outsider even though she's a one of the Call siblings, like really high up.
right.
So, there's a good bit of world building that's done through her eyes, which I think that's pretty interesting because
Yeah.
she tries to live like a normal life, like a normal citizen. You see her finding an apartment, finding a job. I'm like, this is like a really interesting juxtaposition between like all of this, high flying Jade martial arts dueling, and then she's just trying to live a normal life.
Yeah.
So that's
And
something that was interesting.
it's interesting that there even is a normal life because normally if you're reading gangster books, so I actually read the Godfather book after I watched the movie, and a lot of times they don't delve into the normalcy. They keep you in the gangster world. Even when you're talking about a character like Kay, Michael's wife in The Godfather, right? You don't really get to see the day to day lives of these people. But Shay, it's very interesting, and and she's actually the one person in the family that left the family, went to España or whatever they call that area,
Hmm.
and she went against her brother Hilo. Her grandfather was really upset about it as well because she ran away with a guy, sort of, but she
Hmm.
also had a plan. So she's kind of like the black sheep of the family that returns to the family, very much like Michael Corleone. But instead of becoming the pillar, she just is the advisor, and she does really well. She discovers that there's some kind of jade smuggling that's going on outside of just the normal jade sales, and then she realizes that the mountain is doing something, and then that brings up this other character named Doru, who used to be, I think he was
The
he the
weatherman,
weatherman for
yeah, the
their
old
grandfather.
weatherman. Yeah.
They
Actually, I think in the beginning he was weatherman to Lan, but then Hilo had him replaced.
Yeah, that's right. He had him replaced with Woon, and then so I really thought her character is the most generic out of out of out of all the, not generic, but like I could
Most
see.
relatable, right?
Okay, so she's the most relatable, and then you mentioned it before, like you could see a lot of the things happening. You could see it coming, like you could
Yeah.
predict it, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, the way I feel like Fonda feels the most for her, so a lot of she becomes a very sympathetic, like more so than her brothers. A lot of the latter half of the book is just like the thinking process on how to legitimately fight back against the mountain rather than physically fight back.
Yeah.
And through that, you have to go through Shay, because if you go through Hilo, he's just an angry dude. He just wants to get something done.
Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting because they gave her a lot of power, pretty much. And then there's this point in the book where Shay and eight Mata, they meet up, and okay, what do you think about that? Because
Yeah. I mean, so Ait Mata is pretty, even though you don't see her that much, you do feel her presence in everything. Like every calculated move that's encountered by the No Peak clan, you're like, okay, this is like one smart person, like one dangerous enemy that you can't slip up once.
right,
So that scene was pretty tense because there. So basically, the two characters are meeting in secret at a temple, where it's forbidden for any violence. But then I'm like thinking in the back of my head, this Ait Mata, she's so smart, she probably has a loophole. Anything can happen, right? But
Yeah.
as what happened previously with Andon, when she was talking to Andon offering in the position to work for her, she basically put all of her cards on the table and didn't really pull anything dirty. Same thing with here, so it kind of helps build that character that we don't really see that much, and it
Hmm.
just kind of elevates the threat that's faced by the No Peak clan.
Right. And she's kind of like this. The Aitmata is kind of like this stoic badass. You know, she's kind of the combination of Hilo and Lan if they were to be one character, like super cunning but also super violent. Because for Aitmata to reach that position that she was in, what, frick, I keep
She's
for
Pillar.
yeah, she's
I think she was Weatherman. So her backstory is pretty interesting. If I recall correctly, she's the adopted daughter of the previous Pillar,
yeah,
whose counterpart was the grandpa character. So
right,
those two were like legends back in the day.
yeah,
So he adopted Aimata as a daughter, trained her, made her weatherman. But I think she knew that only she was qualified to become Pillar, and that's not her being arrogant. Like she knew that no one else could save the clan and the whole city, basically, because she could see what was happening. So she
right,
basically killed the newly appointed Pillar, and the Horn, which is kind of a big deal because Weatherman's not a fighter traditionally, but
yeah,
she killed both of them and took the spot of Pillar by force.
yeah,
And when you first hear of her, you have this image of like a thug character, right? Like who like someone who only cares about power, but that's not the case.
right,
She's looking at the like the big picture. And honestly, like if I'm kind of surprised that we're looking at things through the No Peak clan, because if you had all the information, like you would be like, okay, the No Peak clan is basically fighting because they're getting pushed out of the Jade business or whatever, and they think the mountain clan's trying to basically get more money. But we learned that there's a bigger motivation for that, right?
hmm,
So I'm just surprised, like, because if we were, I feel like the like the good and bad characters
hmm,
are kind of switched, right?
right. You're
So
act
it's very interesting
Yeah,
because if we had if we had started through the eyes of Ayamada, her viewpoint, then yeah, like the No Peak clan is just they're just in the way of unity and continued independence against outside powers, right?
yeah. So yeah, I thought that was interesting. She's a really compelling character, and like I said, most of these characters are like really well written, and you really get into their motivation, and I think that's the most important part about it. Like really sympathizing for every single character.
Yeah. Speaking of characters, do you want to get into casting?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
Wait, do you want to go? Oh, okay, okay. Why don't we say this? We'll say the first character, and then I'll list the character, and then you just say who you thought would be good. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So let's start with Lan. Who is your thought for Lan?
So honestly, I had a really hard time with a lot of these characters. So Lan, I kind of wanted someone older, kind of cool, but like not too cool.
Okay.
So I had Chang Chen.
Oh, dude, Chang Chan is awesome. You
Yeah.
you mean
So
from Dune, right?
yeah, I haven't seen Dune yet, but he was in the Grandmaster.
Oh yeah, he's the Blade. He's the guy
Yeah,
with the. Oh
and
yeah,
the hat.
he's
So he
super
might be he
awesome.
might be too cool. So I don't know, like Yeah, so I was thinking he would have been a good Hilo, but I couldn't find a good Hilo actually.
Dude, you went older. So I actually went with a lot of Happas.
Okay, who'd you have for land?
So for land, I had actually not a lot of Happas, but you'll see where I'm going with this. So I like Chang Chen, but I feel like he's a little older. He's like in his 40s, or yeah, I think he's in his early 40s. But yeah, that doesn't matter. Asian people look young. But I was going for someone like Henry Golding.
I mean, he doesn't look young either, isn't he? How old is he?
I think he's 40 as well, but like there's something about him where he has that sort of peace to him. He's like the most calm out of the Crazy Rich Asian group. You know
Yeah,
what I
yeah,
mean?
I can see
So
that.
I
Yeah,
I was kind of going off of that vibe. It was either that or there's this actor named Daniel Wu. He was into the Badlands.
yeah, I had him for someone.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
And then I thought about it more, and I was like, I didn't have enough Korean people on my list, so I put John Cho because I really think he's a very good actor. He can play, you know,
yeah, you're right. I think John Cho would be pretty good as Land.
yeah, because he can play that wise character. I don't know if you've ever seen a movie called Columbus, but he's really good in it, and it's a very quiet role. It's a really quiet movie, so yeah, that's what I was going with. Okay, next up, let's go Hilo.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if my choice is right here, but um,
Keanu Reeves. No, I'm joking.
so I found. Have you seen the Rurouni Kenshin movies?
Yes.
Have you seen the one with Anishi?
Yes. No,
Yeah. So
no, no, I haven't.
no. Oh well,
No.
there's a Japanese actor who plays Anishi.
Okay, what's his
He's
name?
called Makenyu, but he looks really young.
Oh, is Inishi the brother of the of
The white hair guy,
Oh, okay, okay, got it. All
because
right,
he like
I'll take a look. Does he speak English?
yeah, he does.
Oh.
He was in Pacific Rim, but I don't really remember him in there.
Oh, the new one or the old one?
The new one.
Oh, so the sequel, I mean.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. Um for me, for Hilo, I went with Louis Tan
Okay.
from Mortal Kombat
Yeah.
and Wu Warriors. Okay, Wu Warriors is not that great of a show, but he's really good in it. And if you watch it, you'll see some comparable scenes of him kind of being like a Hilo character.
Okay. Okay.
And
Yeah, I can see it.
and it's really interesting because in Mortal Kombat, he's not that flashy of a character, but he does the martial arts like perfectly.
Yeah.
Because in actuality, like he's a martial artist first, which is really cool. And
Right.
then
Didn't he? Wasn't he a stunt actor first?
yeah, and his dad was like a stunt coordinator back in the day, so it runs in the family. So that's kind of why I went with him.
Okay.
All right, next up, let's do Shay.
Who'd you have for Shay?
Okay, I had two. I had Jessica Henwick from Iron Fist,
Mm-hmm.
or this girl named Kelly Asbill. Asbill.
Never heard of her.
She's in this show called Yellowstone, and she was in a movie that I really like called Wind River. So she's Asian American, but they I haven't really seen her in Yellowstone, but I remember her in Wind River, and she was pretty good. She played a Native American in that one, although she's Hapa. But yeah, she hasn't been in a lot, so I think this would be kind of a role that she could break out in, kind of.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I chose Veronica No.
Who's that?
She was in the old guard. She only showed up at the end, but
Oh,
she was in a movie called Fury where it's like she just is kind of like a man on fire kind of thing, but she's an actual martial artist.
oh, she was the Vietnamese girl, right?
Yeah.
Okay, okay. All right, cool. Call Sen. What'd you go with?
Well, I mean, there's only one person you can pick for this. That's Kari Hiroyuki Tagawa.
Nope. I went Chow Yun Fat.
Tyler Fett still looks too young though.
No,
He has to
not
be
any.
he has to be like a grandpa, like a semi senile grandpa
All right, all right. Carrie J- Fukunaga. Okay.
to go.
Oh, Takawa. Sorry, my bad, my bad. All right, cool. Now, what about One Call One Ria, the mom?
Oh, I didn't cast the mom.
Okay, that's fine because she's not even that big in the movie. I went with Joan Chen because she's just good with that. Okay,
Yeah.
what about Doru? I thought Doru. Okay, so for those that haven't read the book, Doru is like the old weatherman, but he was also like a child molester, right?
Yeah, well, he has kind of a sad backstory.
Oh, okay, okay. Well, we can get into that later, but yeah. So, what do you think about Doru?
So I picked a guy called Perry Young.
Perry Young. What was he in?
He was in John Wick 2. He was in he's in Warrior. Have you seen the Warrior series?
Oh, I have not seen Warrior yet.
You got to. It's
Yeah, I
right up your
know.
alley.
Okay, Perry Yang.
Young. Y
Oh,
U
Young.
N G.
Perry Young. Okay. Um, I chose Chin Han
Okay, yeah.
from Mortal Kombat. Yeah,
I
because
feel like I feel like he's in everything.
yeah, he kind of is when it comes to like random martial arts or if you need an Asian gangster.
Yeah.
What about Andon?
And then he might be a little bit old, but I picked Ryan Potter.
I did too.
Oh, okay.
All right, so Ryan Potter, you're hired. both of us cast you. Okay, next up we have Wen. This is Hilo's wife or girlfriend, eh,
Girlfriend, then wife.
then wife. Yeah. Who did you have?
I picked Rina Sawayama.
Who the heck is that?
She's a singer, by she's going to be in the new John Wick.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. I actually just randomly found this Asian actress. Her name is Kay Alexander. She's like
How do you
half
spell that?
Japanese, half Chinese. So Kay is spelled Kae Alexander. So she's like a Chinese British lady.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's what I went with. Okay, this one is fun. Aitmata. What do you think of
So
Aitmata?
I put Shang-Chi's sister,
Oh, dude, that's a smart one. Shoot.
Meng Zhang. That's her name?
Hey, so I totally forgot, but is she old or young?
I don't know.
I don't
I feel
remember.
like she's the physical description. She looks unassuming. Like you wouldn't look twice at her.
Right. So I actually have a couple of choices. So I went with Elodie Young.
Oh, from
Um,
GI Joe.
or well, I don't remember her from GI Joe. I was thinking more of
Daredevil.
Daredevil. Yeah. And then at one point, I was thinking Sandra Oh or Priyanka Chopra. I don't
No, I
know.
think I think they're too distinctive. Those two, yeah, you just mentioned.
Oh, really? But Elodie Young, or I also wrote Maggie Q down, so I wasn't sure.
Maggie Q could,
But
because
I don't
yeah,
know.
I don't remember how old she was. I'm guessing younger to middle age. I
Yeah,
really don't know.
yeah. So if there was like a specific age and it went for the younger, I'd probably go Elodie Young. But if it didn't matter, I'd probably go Maggie Q.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, next up, Gaunt Ash.
So I put Joe Taslim.
Oh, that's a good one. Oh, shoot.
So I had two choices. It was either him or what's that big Korean guy from Last Train to Busan?
Oh, Danny Lee.
Um I think his American name's Don Lee, but
Oh,
his
Don
Korean
Lee.
name is completely different.
Okay, yeah, he's really good in Eternals, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Um, okay, I think
Who'd you have?
Donley would be great because they kind of wrote him as like a big guy, right?
Yeah.
I was having trouble. I was thinking like Brian T or Andrew Koji or Rick
So I
Yoon.
had I had Andrew Koji for one of the Mike brothers.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Dude,
I was
I ran.
actually thinking about putting him as Hilo, but he just I don't know, he just doesn't look aggressive enough. Like I know he is, but he doesn't have that aura.
He doesn't have like the fun. He has the seriousness.
Yeah, he's pretty serious.
Yeah, so he might have been a better Land actually.
Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah,
can
I
see
could
that.
see him as Land, but oh, Joe Taslim is great. Okay, good. Okay, all right. Next up, I have Bureau or Barrow,
Barrow, I don't really cast him. He's just some kid that you're not supposed to like.
but he's throughout the whole book though. He's
Yeah,
actually an inciting incident throughout like the entire book.
yeah, I don't know.
I put Hudson Yang.
Is that the guy from Fresh Off the Boat?
Yeah, yeah, it is. But if
Okay,
you
that
look
works.
at him, he's grown like a lot. Like
Oh, okay,
he's
yeah,
older now. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna get to the last two that I have on my list. The Mike brothers.
So,
I had no idea who to go for, so I'm just gonna say I chose Liu Kang and Kung Lao from the new Mortal Kombat movie.
I mean, yeah, hey, that works.
But okay, who are
So,
yeah?
so I had Andrew Koji and Manny Jacinto.
Manny Jacinto.
Yeah, he's
Okay,
the guy from The Good Place.
I have not seen that yet.
Okay, I just chose him because he kind of looks like a gangster.
Does he wait? What's the Good Place? Isn't that the? Isn't that a comedy?
Yeah,
Okay. But he looks imposing. Is he like the bad guy or
no,
something?
no, he doesn't look imposing. He just has that gangster face.
Ah, I see. He's got like a very squarish chin for sure.
Yeah. And then I was thinking, so if you've seen Warrior, then Jason Tobin is pretty good in that.
Jason Tobin. Okay, let
Yeah.
me. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Wasn't Jason Tobin in Better Luck Tomorrow?
Yeah. He
He
was.
was, right?
Yeah.
Wow. Does this guy fight? He looks buff now.
Yeah. I mean, in Warrior, he fights all the time. Even though he's on the smaller side, like he's pretty good.
Oh, dude, I love that idea. That's actually a really good pick. I think
Yeah.
Jason
So
Tobin and Andrew Koji kind of look alike.
you think so?
No, never mind. I take it
No,
back.
they do not.
No, yeah, you're right. But maybe they could pass as brothers. All right. So I just threw this in as a last idea, but I was thinking directors.
Hmm.
Um, I was thinking Kerry Joji Fukunaga.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's
I,
he's
I like I like the stuff he's done.
he's pretty good with action, especially and he's he's pretty good with the camera too. Like what was that? True Detective, that one tracking shot. What do you think, Justin Lin?
Justin Lin. So is he the Fast and Furious guy?
Yeah,
Um, I don't know because you need like good character work. So I don't
dude,
know if Justin Lin's directed a lot of. Hold on, let me make sure I'm thinking of the right Justin Lin.
he did Better Luck Tomorrow, and he did
Actually,
the
actually haven't seen that one.
Star Trek into not into the darkness, but Star Trek Beyond.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, wouldn't be my first choice. What about Ang Lee?
Ooh, no, I think Ang Lee would want to make it a little too like moody and
I
love
mean, it is
lovely.
moody.
Yeah, that's true. I don't think he's ever done a gangster movie now that I think about it. This would be a pretty good gangster genre movie.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of a director called Tarsem Singh?
Yeah. He did The Fall, right? And
Yeah.
Immortals. Yeah, I like his stuff. Well,
Yeah, I think he
I
would
like
be
I
really
like the way
great too.
I like the way it looks.
Yeah.
Like he
Has
does visually striking stuff.
Because if you think about it, like I don't know if you remember what was it? Immortals, right?
Yeah.
But every time the gods fight, there's always like this energy barrier that they have, and he kind of slow mo's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, his visuals are always super impressive.
Yeah. Although the rest of Immortals was, I enjoyed it, but it didn't do that well.
Yeah, I know, but that's
And I actually haven't seen The Fall, but I heard good things.
the fall is really interesting because he traveled to like 5 different countries and shot throughout, and he used his own money pretty much.
Oh,
But
I
yeah,
see.
so that one is his passion project. Like he wrote it, he directed it, and it's like one of the only ones I think he wrote by himself. Anyways, Jason, thank you for sitting down with me and reading this book. It took almost a month for me. I feel like it took a week for you,
Yeah, I sometimes get caught up in books and just, oh shoot, it's 3 a.m. Where did the time go?
which is very admirable. I can't do that. But yeah, thank you all for sitting down with us and listening to us talk. And we'll talk to you guys soon with our next book, which we'll announce later.
Thanks.
All
Bye,
right,
everyone.
later, folks. Bye.